This week on the 11th OVC, the cartridge box on the Carbine Sling. Is it accurate? Is it possible? And more importantly, is it practical? Those of you that do living history or reenactments, or those that see and watch living history and reenactments, you may have seen some reenactors or some cavalry troopers wearing their carbine cartridge box on the sling rather than the belt. Now the first question is, why do they do this? In a practical sense, those that from living history that have done this, it makes a significant easier access to your rounds and your cartridges than it is on your belt, especially people who have a limited range of articulation, to be able to reach back in your belt and grab your carbine rounds out of your cartridge box that may be back here by your holster here, or maybe even on your left hand side. It does take a little bit of flexibility to reach back there, grab around without spilling other ones, and then actually placing that in your carbine. So the idea of putting your cartridge box, your carbine cartridge box, on your sling, it does make some sense to begin with. Now obviously my first question, those of you who are adamant subscribers to the YouTube channel know that my first question is it normal, is it usual, or is it general, or is it nug? So as always, we go to the archives and we look for photos, we look for letters, we look for a variety of things that may indicate that the original troopers may have done this. So what did I do? I went on to the researcharsenal.com and I searched more than 10,000 photos, filtering by cavalry photos and then cartridge box. And lo and behold, there are about 28 to 30-ish images that actually had cavalry troopers with cartridge boxes. And you can see here, most of them are on the belts. Some of them you can't quite see, but still, none of the photos, out of more than 10,000 photos, none of them showed cavalry troopers wearing the cartridge box on the carbine sling. The next thing I did is I went to the letters and I searched more than 30,000 letters. I filtered by cavalry troopers, and then I keyword searched the cartridge box or cartridges or sling to see if I could find anything. And I found one letter that stated the following: I have to go on drill this afternoon. It makes a good load to carry our sword and carbine and cartridge box. It is hard work, cavalry drill. William Eady with the 14th Pennsylvania Cavalry. So the conclusion? Well, there's not much photographic evidence for it, and the letters back home from cavalry troopers stated that the carbine cartridge box, in addition to everything else, was quite the load indeed. So from an authenticity standpoint, do we throw this idea out completely? Well, not so much. And the reason I say this is because there is, if you want to call it photographic evidence, or really it's a plate image from the Poinset's Cavalry Tactics Manual. There are images, both when it shows how to hook up your saber, when it shows how to do certain manual of arms. It actually shows the plate or this drawing of this cavalry trooper with the carbine cartridge box on the sling itself. Now it must be noted that these drawings or these plates are very much French inspired, and that the military at the time did not actually do this when it comes to the standard issue equipment. So one of the things I really like about this episode, or this idea, is that this is very much, in a way, solving period problems with period solutions. Could the guys in the original cast 160 years ago, could they have had some poor articulation or poor arm reach and had a hard time grabbing ammo, and therefore could they have put their carbine box on their sling? Very much so. So we're going to do some experiential archaeology ourselves and actually do this and see what the problem is, or whether it actually is useful or not. Now I will say the one thing that changes completely the dynamic between living history and the real or the original cast is the actual loadout and the weight of the carbine cartridge box. So obviously for reenacting or living history purposes, we don't use live ammunition or ammunition with lead bullets in there. However, the original cast actually did. In a loadout of 20 rounds of ammunition or 40 rounds of ammunition with live ammunition, meaning, the lead bullets, made the standard carbine cartridge box quite heavy indeed. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually put this thing on actually as a carbine cartridge box, and we're going to see, actually we're going to ride down the road at the trot, at the gallop, and we're going to see how actually difficult this was. And what we're going to do is we're going to load these with live burn seed. And what we're going to do is we're going to load this carbine cartridge box with live Burnside cartridges. Now obviously the Burnside was one of the most common cartridges out there, next to the sharps. Obviously later in the war, Spencer became pretty popular as well. But the Burnside carbine was actually one of the most common carbines out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to load this carbine cartridge box with Burnside cartridges. Now I'm going to go ahead and predict that the live weight of a loaded cartridge box will actually preclude the, I guess, the ease of access of cartridges on the carbine sling and make it unwieldy and heavy on the chest, and therefore make it more possible, more likely to really mount it on our belt versus the carbine sling. But hopefully I'm wrong. We'll see. So before we get to the conclusion, you may have noticed that I mentioned researching thousands of images and thousands of transcribed letters about this topic. One of the things that you can have access to the same research database that we have in transcribing thousands of letters for keywords, and you can filter by unit, you can filter by branch like we did, or you can keyword search every item that's in images from the Library of Congress or other private collections. So if you go to theresearcharsenal.com now and use the promo code 11th OVC, that's 11THOVC, you will receive a 15% discount, and it'll give you access to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of images, letters, ordnance returns, and so much more. Again, if you guys want to support this channel, this is how you do it. We don't do a Patreon because all you get is videos. You get my pretty mug, and no one wants to see that. If you actually want to support us, support this channel, go to theresearcharsenal.com now and subscribe. Use the promo code 11th OVC and get a 15% discount on your subscription. And join one of the largest, fastest growing Civil War research databases in the country. All right, so on the horse. Oh, he wants to go. All right, so on the horse, have the carbine cartridge box loaded down with all the live ammunition, lots of lead. I will say it is pretty, definitely a noticeable weight difference from reenacting to actually having live ammunition. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, trot down some roads, maybe gallop down some roads, and I'm just gonna film what's going on with my cartridge box, and we'll see what my review is after it's all done. I will say already, it's actually not as bad as I thought. Definitely not as bad as I thought. So we'll see. We'll do some test runs and we'll see what the final result is here. So the first observation is, and pretty obvious, after about the first 3 seconds of trotting, haven't even got into gallop yet, the cartridge box definitely slid down to the base of the carbine sling. So again, not surprising, but definitely something to note. Now let's try the gallop. All right, so something that I didn't really think about that actually is obvious now that it happened. While trying to reach in my cartridge box and grab some rounds, the angle that the cartridge box was at, especially with my slippery brass Burnside cartridges, I lost about, not half, but 4 or 5, 6 cartridges just fell out when I was trying to grab one. So again, didn't really think about that, trying to access your cartridges while trotting or galloping. Again, the manuals, both Cook's, Poinsettias, Patton's, they all say that troopers should be able to load their carbine at the walk, trot, and the gallop. And galloping and trotting and accessing your rounds while doing that gait, I spilled out, a decent amount of my ammunition. So that's something to keep in mind, is that at the angle that it is, you would lose a lot of ammunition. Now, maybe on the sharps, Merrill, the other cartridges that are linen or paper based, you may have better luck on there staying inside of the tins or inside the wooden block. But again, especially with the Burnside, fell right on out, and I lost, like I said, 5 or 6 rounds out of my box, especially mainly because the angle that the cartridge box was at while I was accessing that. So yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. So now on to the conclusion. The one thing I will say I'm surprised on is that with a loaded cartridge box, I actually, it wasn't as heavy or arduous or I guess labor intensive as I thought. Up here, it wasn't too bad. However, from a practical standpoint, what kind of nailed this in the coffin for me was that after, I mean, when I started in the trot, like 3 trots in, 3 steps in, my entire cartridge box just, I mean, it went not just to my holster, it went past my holster down to the you know, convergence point of where my carbine actually was hanging on my carbine sling. So the access was way down here, did not stay up here at all. And secondly, like I said, when I was riding, when I was trying to access my rounds to be able to load my carbine, actually a fair amount of rounds fell out. Now, you could say that this is due to the slippery brass, you know, rounds that were the Burnside, that my cartridge box, they weren't seated all the way in there. There are some nuances that I will give you, but overall, I would, especially in combat, I would not want to risk the angle that this cartridge box is at. I would not want to risk my rounds leaving. I would not want to risk that at all. And so, you know, that's definitely something to note, that at this angle that it has, especially down when it was lowered to the carbine, it just would be a pain to reach down there. It's not as natural as reaching back. You can easily lose some versus what I like about having it on your belt, whether it's the Burnside, the Smith, or even the Sharps cartridge box. I know when I'm reaching back there, I'm grabbing 1 round. And everything else is vertical. You know, gravity's holding them in the other slots, and I don't have to worry too much about losing rounds versus it being at an angle like this. So overall, I will say that I was pleasantly surprised. The weight wasn't too bad. It was manageable. But overall, I don't think I would like it on my chest. Does it preclude anyone from doing it? Not necessarily, although, like I said, as far as what was normal, usual, or general, there is no photographic evidence that I have found. The only thing that supports this idea from an image standpoint is the French-inspired plates or drawings in Poinset's manual. But overall, like I said, could it have happened? Yes. Was it normal or usual or something that you could see in images? Not really. But could this be a period solution to a period problem? Possibly, especially for soldiers who had some injuries to the arm, bad shoulders, and couldn't quite reach back there. Although I will say there's more images of cartridge boxes being in the front, kind of like a law enforcement officer would have it today, versus being on the sling. So take that for what you will and make your own conclusions. So with that, guys, I'm curious what you think below. You see this in living history a lot, having a carbine box up here. I understand the reason why, but is it something that you think may have been seen originally? So again, put your comments below. I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. Honestly, now I could kind of go either way now that I've done this with a live cartridge box. So again, if you want to support this channel, please click subscribe. Go to theresearcharsenal.com now. Get a 15% discount by using the promo code 11thOVC and gain access to hundreds of thousands of primary records. And you can have your own adventure of discovery like we have in searching this topic. So again, until we see you in the field, ride hard.